Hello, and welcome to another episode with Yokai Engineering here. And today's interview is sponsored by World Outsourcing Solutions, and we are delighted today to have a gentleman from the US who is a master when it comes to business coaching and working with startups. I'll let Jeff tell you more about himself in a moment. But this program is sponsored by World Outsourcing Solutions, which specializes with providing business owners from here in the UK and the rest of the world. And you can visit the site, which is www.worldoutsourcingsolutions.com for more information. The title of our interview today is The Myth and Misconception About Business or Career That Can Stop You as a Business Owner, or if you are into career, before you get your results. Now, Jeff, welcome to the show.
Oh, wonderful one. Thank you so much. I look forward to getting acquainted with you and your audience.
Incredible. Really appreciate you taking time in your busy schedule to talk to us today about a key thing that normally business owners don't talk about, but we should talk about if we're going to be successful in what we set out to do. Now, before we get into the actual interview, would you talk to us about your background, your education, and how you got started in what you're doing today?
My pleasure. First of all, I'm a person who grew up in New York and attended university in New York City, both my undergraduate and master's. My master's is in social work. After graduation, I did psychoanalytic training at the Institute of Modern Psychoanalysis, a program that traces its lineage back to Freud. I believe the original head of the school was analyzed by someone who was analyzed by someone who was analyzed by Freud. And that's the traditional way that psychoanalysts trace their history back in time. But my professional career was in executive search, working with organizations, helping them identify talent. And in doing that, working closely with hiring managers, business owners, which required that I really understood the nuances that went beyond the obvious job description.
Right.
So that's really how everything came together for me into the world of coaching.
Incredible. But before you got into the world of coaching, Jeff, what focus then?
I'm sorry, you broke up just before the question came out. My apologies.
Okay, before you got involved in coaching, did you have any other career or any other focus?
Oh, yes. For most of my life, I've worked in executive recruiting, working with organizations to help them hire talent. So I've filled more than 1,200 full-time positions, plus many, many temporary assignments. Over the course of my career, I've coached individuals for job hunting. I've done a lot in the world of executive search before I moved into coaching.
Beautiful. And what triggered you to go into the coaching industry?
I think all of us kind of get the bug at a certain point. And for me, I thought of becoming a therapist in private practice in my late 40s, but I had the good fortune of meeting my wife in graduate school. We got married, had a son, bought a house. We did the typical stuff that American families like to do as you start out. And again, I was in my late 40s at this point and kind of shelved my desire to become a therapist. Even though I did see a few patients, it wasn't a, quote, career for me at that point. But as I've gotten older, I started to realize there was something missing. I wasn't satisfied with these interim solutions. So I started to move into coaching a while back, did coach training through an organization called Coachville, which operates internationally, and started to work with coaching clients in business and business leadership and career coaching throughout the United States.
Incredible. One of the things that I asked by many of my clients and many of the people listening to these audios is, when you have an idea and you know inside you that you want to get this idea out there, how do you actually, what is the first step that you take to get this idea out there?
Well, I'm a believer that you try to minimize risk.
Right.
Everything has a certain element of risk. So for me, as I started to look at making this career change, what could I do to monetize my previous knowledge and create a revenue stream from it? And from there, start doing what I really wanted to do.
Right.
So for me, I knew that I would be taking less time in executive search, but I'd already developed a lot of content for YouTube and for other platforms. Like I've written 8 books about job hunting, one about staffing. I host 2 podcasts currently about job search, and wanted to continue doing that because I thought it was a monetization stream for me. But from there, it was really working to make the break and to do the kinds of things that I really wanted to do. Right. So for most people, I always encourage, you've got a full-time position, or you have the idea of starting a business. You don't have to do it full out unless you have investors who are willing to put up money for you.
That's right.
What you want to be doing is starting the effort on the side with small steps that minimize the risk, but get you the opportunity to explore that which you really want to be doing. Because you may discover it's not really the right thing. So maybe it's a derivative of that. And if you went into it whole hog, full effort, without that sort of investigation, you may be spending a lot of time and a lot of money and a lot of effort working to develop something that you decide you really don't want to do. So the starting place is always getting started. You always have to take that first step and defeat the fear, or put it on hold temporarily, and start taking those small incremental steps to break out of that self-imposed box that you've accepted living in, and start living the life that you want to be living, and discovering whether it actually is worth taking further risk.
Incredible. I love what you say there, Jeff, about doing your own little research before you jump with both feet in. Just figure out if this resonates with you, and have a bit of a plan before you and that way you have a backup. Now, taking you back to those early years of you doing your coaching business, were there any roadblocks that you faced earlier on that you would want people starting out to be aware of, and how they can overcome them?
Well, first of all, I'm someone who had a career, and a very successful career, before moving into coaching. So the branding became an issue for me, because I was so seen as being a job search professional, an executive recruiter, a career coach. It's been hard for people to see me any other way. And I grew to accept that rather than argue with them, that there were always going to be some people who would want to see me that way, and that was fine. And I had to start educating them differently and getting them to see me in a related way. I can't say a different way, because coaching is coaching, but to start to notice that I was doing something a bit different. So the one thing I had to accept, and this was my own education in this, my own experiment, was that it was going to take more time than I really hoped.
Right.
As I spoke about earlier, you start doing things on the side, and I really want to leap in all the way, full effort. And I took my own advice and gave myself some time to build up to the point where I could just do business coaching. So, take small steps, discover where your issues were. In my case, it was how good my branding was, and how I had to start helping people associate me differently than the way they had seen me up until that point.
Incredible. And I find as you do that, in the beginning, it will be a struggle, but as people see you persisting in what you're doing, and they begin to respect that, and soon they begin to believe that actually you're doing something that is going to help out. Talk about getting clients, because one of the challenges we find is getting that initial client, so that your belief goes up. How did you get that very first client?
Well, there's the first career coaching client and the first business coaching client. And the career coaching client was a referral from someone I did not know from a hole in the wall.
Right.
and just called me up out of the blue saying, I met with someone who I think you can help. You do coaching, right? I said, absolutely. And started working with her. From the business coaching perspective, which is really where, I want to help most, it's reaching out to my existing network and making sure that everyone understood what I was looking for, who I thought I could best help and why, what my special sauce was going to be, what my why was in trying to do this kind of work. And for me, most of the people I work with from a business coaching perspective are startups, solopreneurs, people who are starting something and are trying to build it into something significant. So my existing network was huge with that. And I gave away some free sessions to people just to give them a flavor. And from there, I would say, I'll give you 5 sessions. I'll give you 6 sessions, never more than that. And then we'll sit down and talk about whether you'd like to continue. If you don't, my feelings won't be hurt. I may whimper a little bit. I may ask you whether there was something that I could have done better. But at the end of the day, it's your choice, and I'll support you with it. And even those who've dropped off from me from time to time come back, which I love. Because it's like realizing they can do better with me than without me. So I find that very affirming. I also do things, in terms of reaching out to people through things like, the podcast circuit. So folks, I want you to know about me, so you'll consider reaching out to me. And then the marketing that I do with LinkedIn and Facebook and Twitter and Google Plus and, a whole host of things so that I'm out there. I write for LinkedIn so that people get a flavor for me and my thought process. And that entices them to reach out to me. And I'll link all my articles back to my website so that they feel comfortable exploring more. And then I publish an e-zine. But when push comes to shove, the first clients really come from word of mouth, from people who know me, like me, and trust me already, who want my help.
Absolutely. And I find that to be true, in many businesses, that you start with your network, be authentic and be real, be relatable. And when you have that in place, and you have all the Facebook and LinkedIn and all that, and the website in place, people have this ability of, they meet you, they like you and trust you. And then they want to check you out to see if you're authentic. And that's when they go onto your website, they go to look at your social media to see if you're active. So the word out there for entrepreneurs is, be authentic, start with your network, and the whole thing will grow from there.
Agree wholeheartedly. The network, your net worth comes from your network. And the more people who know, like, and trust you, the easier it becomes to build a business.
Absolutely. And the amazing thing that I've discovered, Jeff, is all the big companies that are doing so well, the top 100 companies, they have a genuine relational interest in people. They are authentic. They do a great job. That's why they stay there. So if you are starting out, if you can figure out a way of being genuine, provide great customer services, and really add tremendous value to people, people keep coming back because they connect with you and they feel that there is something out there that they can benefit from what you're doing.
Absolutely. And I don't want something you said to go by, and that is connect with you. It's so important as a coach to build that relationship with the person that you're coaching. My work isn't just simply, receiving a call or a Skype from someone who says, help me, I've got this problem. It's awful. I need your help. Of course, I'm here to help. And we start off with something concrete usually, and then progress to the real coaching, which exists in the relationship where they're able and willing to reveal more to me than they might otherwise. So in demonstrating to them my competence, they start to develop confidence and trust. And obviously I'm talking about the people who don't know me personally yet. But you build that relationship with them where they believe that I'm there and I can really coach them to be more effective. Because after all, we've been watching Olympians now for a couple of weeks, and to my knowledge, none of them walk in without a coach. They've all had people helping bring them to that point where they could be on the world stage. And most people I run into operate without one, and they think they have to figure it out by themselves. And folks, how's that working for you? Isn't it a lot harder than to just be able to reach out to someone and bounce ideas off of who isn't invested in whatever decision that you make?
You've touched on a very important subject there. Even musicians, even at school, our teachers back then were our coach, where we had someone to look up to. And it's only when we become adults that we let go of those very simple fundamentals, like having a coach, having somebody to be accountable to. And we wonder why life is not progressing as we thought it would be.
Isn't it a lot easier to ask for advice and support than to have to figure out everything by yourself?
I like the way you just put it there. Jeff, let's move on to the myth and misconception that business may have. In your opinion, what is the number one misconception that business owners have about building successful business?
Oh, I touched on that just a moment ago. And that's the idea that they have to figure it out by themselves. That as someone said to me a while back, they keep taking on task after task after task and never ask. Oh. So for so many startups, for so many independent people who are building their businesses, they are out there doing far more than they need to do. And I know how difficult it is sometimes to relinquish that control, because as I was launching a website earlier this year, I had to defeat some of those voices in my head that said, okay, you got to do it yourself. Okay, you can do this. And I asked myself, why? Why do I have to do this? Why can't I just simply hire someone to do it? Lord knows there are any number of people outside of the United States who are far more capable of doing this, and depending upon where they are, they're cheaper than anyone I could find.
Absolutely. I'll tell you an example. I know many of my audience knows this already. I have the privilege of running an outsourcing company, and many of my employees, are based in the Philippines, one of the best countries for outsourcing. Truly speaking, in recent years, the Philippines has become the capital of outsourcing. Major companies, go to the Philippines because the work ethic is amazing. The attitude towards work is brilliant, bar none, compared to what I see here in the United Kingdom. So, for business owners there who are starting out, rather than do everything yourself, consider using a virtual assistant. If you use a company like ours, where you can hire people at an most affordable price compared if you were to hire somebody, locally.
Absolutely true. And we hadn't met at that time, so I went out there looking on my own and kissed a bunch of frogs before I eventually found someone who was useful at a reasonable price.
That's right.
So, I'm a big believer in outsourcing certain things in order to speed up the process and help get people to where they want to be faster. Because again, in my case, I was having someone do video edits, and it's not difficult. All I wanted someone to do was snip something at the beginning and snip something at the end. But it wasn't anything I was familiar with. I knew I could learn it, but why would I want to learn it?
Yes. Create a job for somebody else. At the same time, you benefit from the entire experience.
And they did it better and faster than I could have done. And it was easier, and I didn't have to be caught up in the minutia that so many business owners find themselves in. I like to think of myself as someone who does very well at a conceptual level, that I can see things from the big picture perspective. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm great at details, but it's not really my strong suit. I've gotten good at it, but it's effort for me. It's energy that I can be expending in different ways, whether it's in marketing my business or working with coaching customers or spending time with my family. So rather than just doing everything yourself, folks, hire an outsourcing firm, let them do a lot of it, make it easy for you. Hey, I know this guy who does a podcast who has an outsourcing business, and maybe you want to reach out to Yokai. So, when push comes to shove, don't take every task on yourself. It's goofy to do that kind of stuff.
I like the way you put yourself, and moving on to a question which I tend to hear a lot about, in line with what we're talking about. Doing things all by yourself, which is a misconception. How does it hurt the actual the person who's doing that?
Oh, that one's easy. And again, using myself as an example, what happens is we're born with a certain amount of energy that we can use on any given day. So, energetically, emotionally, what starts to happen is we are draining that deposit each and every day. And the question becomes, do you want to drain it in ways that are going to build revenue for your business, that are going to help you to see the things that you need to do, or do we want to be spending it in all the details and in all the minutia, never taking our head out of the sand to look around at what's going on around us? Now, if you're a solopreneur, if you're a small business owner, I understand that you think you need to straddle both worlds. And maybe because you don't have the revenue yet, you may have to do that. However, you should be looking to keep your head above ground a lot more than below ground. And this way, you can be aware of where you need to be. You can be serving your customers better because you're focused on them, not on the detail. It's kind of like in the days where I was reading lots of resumes that were emailed to me. Almost all of them were like spam, that they never really fit anything I was recruiting for, but people insisted upon sending it to me. And, if I wanted to keep my head in the ground, I could keep reading resumes and getting frustrated with all these people who were sending resumes to me that were pointless. Instead, once I started to lift my head up and look around, I could see opportunities for myself that I would not have seen otherwise.
Outstanding. That's incredible. And again, if you are listening, we are talking to Jeff here from the US on some of the misconception and myth that business owners, believe when it comes to building their own business. And I hope you're taking notes and making sure you'll be able to implement that, as I'm taking notes as well. In your opinion, Jeff, what is the second biggest myth or misconception that you see around among business owners when it comes to building or running a successful business?
Well, I'm going to start Well, I want to divide things up here. There's the nature of the work that your firm does. And if you're the sole person who works at that firm, there's your day-to-day side. If you have a small team, it's the same thing. It's the operations of your business. And the part that tends to get neglected is your emotional side. The part of you where you're holding on to stuff without sorting it out. So the misconception invariably, to me anyway, is that if you just force things, if you push harder, if you just try that much harder, it's going to be fine. When in fact, maybe all you're doing is doing more of the same that's gotten you into that position. Again, back to coaching. What coaching really helps someone do is receive input from someone who has a different perspective, who can see things that the person being coached may be missing. Now, we can only see as much as you're willing to reveal. And if you hold back on your coach, well, it's going to be hard to really be effective. You need to develop that relationship with the person coaching you where you feel open enough to really share the struggles, because those struggles can be, man, it's tough at home and I'm bringing it into work, and how do I deal with this? Or, I just took something out on one of my people that I never should have spoken with them about. And you need to sort that kind of stuff through. So when all is said and done, to me, the big deficiency is on the emotional side. Just because you feel like you have to work 80 hours a week doesn't mean that emotional side doesn't need to be addressed. Because trust me, unless you deal with it proactively, you may have to deal with it reactively. And that reaction is far more expensive and far more complicated than the proactive dealing with it.
Absolutely. That brings me to the next question, Jeff, and I can sense it that it's on someone's mind right now as they're listening to you. Is how then do you go about choosing the right coach that you can really open up? Because some of the things you touched on, they're really personal. You can't just go around and revealing that to everyone. How do you choose one, or what qualities do you look at if you're going to choose the right coach for yourself?
Usually, people will be able to find one through a referral. So if you know someone who's been coached, that's always the easiest way. What was your experience with that coach? How did you get along with them? How did they help you? What sort of things did you bring to them, to see if there's something that relates to you? Because there's so many different issues in business coaching. Their issue, maybe it's a marketing thing, and that's not really what you're concerned with. So you start off by looking for referrals. But from there, it's really, to me anyway, I don't think there's anything terrible about hiring the wrong coach and then firing them. Experimenting like you would in different elements of your business. One of my beliefs is, as adults, we get this crazy notion that we're supposed to be perfect at everything we do, that we can't make a mistake, we can't hire the wrong person and dismiss them later on. I know we prefer not doing that, but it happens. And rather than punishing ourselves with all sorts of criticism, I encourage people, take a leap of faith, hire a coach, have a couple of sessions with them, see how it works out, see what the relationship between you how it starts to develop. If there's no connection, if there's nothing that this person seems to be giving you other than something that you could buy in a book at a store, then fire them. It's okay. All you've invested is a couple of hours. But the likelihood is, like with a therapist, you'll start to build a relationship where you start to see things and they start to see certain things in you. So to me, it's referral is number one. Number two is taking the leap of faith and conducting an experiment with them to see if they're the right person.
Incredible. And This may be directed to you because I know you are a coach. What should be the mindset of somebody coming to you for, maybe to have a session with you that enables you to help them greatly?
Well, usually they come to me because they realize they need help.
That's right.
Which is the golden moment that prompts so many people, that they feel up against the wall to the point where they're willing to contact me. I discourage people for waiting that long. If you can avoid waiting to the point of really feeling like, I need help me, please. That's ideal, because normally when someone is reaching to me like that, they're in crisis. And what we're dealing with is the crisis situation. And that's not really the ideal time for coaching. That's really getting out of the bunker where the war is going on and trying to solve an immediate situation. Coaching is ideal over a continuum of time, where maybe initially we start with the crisis, but from there it's, what did you learn? How did you get into that situation? How could this have been avoided? Now, initially they all say, impossible to have avoided. Out of control situation, such an exception. And experience tells me that isn't true. They chose to miss certain things. They chose to ignore certain tea leaves that were being read to them in the hope that by force of will, belief, or whatever excuse that they would have, that they could persevere.
Right.
And it's foolhardy. So that most people come to me in crisis or because they can't figure something out. I prefer the latter, can't figure something out, or I want someone else's eyes on this problem, rather than the crisis scenario. Don't get me wrong, I handle crises all the time. But what's best for the person I'm coaching is not waiting till that point, is to develop the relationship with the coach before you ever get there, rather than while you're in the middle of hell.
Right. Right. Makes perfect sense. And if you're listening, you just joined us, you're listening to Jeff giving you some strategies about coaching and how you can get the help way ahead of time. Because of our time here, Jeff, we want to jump onto the third and last misconception that you see business owners experiencing, or a business owner have, about running a successful business.
Work harder. Come on, work harder, folks. Come on. You're there at 6 a.m. You're leaving at 10 at night. Come on, you got to work harder while you're there. And matter of fact, longer. Sleep is for wimps. No sleep. 24/7, 365, or else, forget it. You'll never make it. Folks, all that happens is you kill yourself. You lose your family if you have one. Your kids go to therapy later, and that doesn't really make a lot of sense, does it? So don't worry about, getting sleep. Years ago, there was a person who worked for me who was working incredibly long hours and trying so hard and just couldn't connect, just couldn't sell her way out of the paper bag. And she came to me crying one day, and I asked her about her schedule, and she told me it was basically, up before the crack of dawn, home at 8 o'clock at night, making calls at night. And I told her, Carolyn, you're working too hard.
Right.
You're working way too hard. Lighten it up a little bit. Have some fun. Go crazy. You got to do this, because otherwise all that happens is you kill yourself. Now, there are other things that people do. If you're in the sales part of your business, as many startups do, you never practice your sales pitch. You never run it by other people to see or hear how other people respond to it. Because trust me on this one, you're not as good at presenting yourself as you think you are. So the notion that you can run it by someone who gives you feedback about how you are received or heard by someone goes a long way toward being far more successful in your business. Whether it's someone interviewing for a job or someone hiring, you make mistakes galore. And as a business owner, when you're hiring people, trust me, because I've heard from job hunters for years how poorly interviews are constructed in order to evaluate and assess for talent. They're awful. And especially if you bring on a second and third person into the process, you need to tell them what they need to be screening for, because otherwise they're going to be going down rabbit holes that are pointless to you and then rejecting people for reasons that are nonsensical, that have nothing to do with whether or not this person's qualified. And I want to sneak in one more, and that is the notion of hiring someone because you think they'll fit in.
Right.
Help me understand how you're evaluating for fit. Have you done psychological testing and industrial psychology testing of your existing staff to understand their personalities? Then administer the same test to these people that you're evaluating. No, of course not. What you're doing is saying, they seem like a pretty good person. I'll give them a shot, or they seem knowledgeable about this. They kind of remind me of Wen over on the third floor, so I'll hire them. Well, folks, it's a big mistake. If you're going to bring fit into the equation, there have to be measures for it. And as a small business owner, I don't encourage people to do that. Just evaluate for qualifications. And if you're bringing people into the equation to evaluate as well, be clear about what you want them to evaluate for. Period. Don't worry about fit. People can adapt. Trust me.
Incredible. And you can give them the information they need. You can train them as well, the way you want them to be.
Bingo. But so many business owners think they have to hire a finished product. So the job is open for a lot longer. Qualified people are rejected for nonsensical reasons. I use the word, this is a professional coaching term, goofy. People do goofy things all the time, and there's no point in it.
Yes.
All you do is hurt yourself in your business.
Incredible. Jeff, I know for a fact that there's somebody in the audience today who would love to connect with you at some level. Where can they find you, and what sort of platform do you use that they can find you on?
The easiest way for the initial contact would be to send me an email at thebiggamehunter@gmail.com. Drop me a note. Tell me you heard me on the show, and we'll schedule a time to speak by Skype, phone, FaceTime, whatever the medium is. Let's get acquainted. Let's see if I'm the right person for you. That's probably the easiest way to do it initially.
Incredible. And do you have a website they can check out as well on their way there?
Absolutely. So my coaching website is called nobscoachingadvice.com. Now, if you happen to be one of the listeners who's in job search mode, go to jobsearchcoachinghq.com, where I have curated information that I've developed over the years to help you be more effective. But my coaching site is nobscoachingadvice.com. While you're there, click the tab that says encouragement. You'll watch some videos of mine on diverse subjects that might be helpful to you in your business. You get an idea of my thought process and how I connect with people.
Incredible. Outstanding. Well, Jeff, you have done an amazing job, sharing your knowledge with our audience. We would like to honor you and thank you for being so generous with what you know.
Thank you. Could I leave the audience with a quick story?
Absolutely.
Thank you. There's a story I heard many years ago about how lions hunt gazelle. And the way the story goes is gazelle are much faster than lions. So the lions have created a system in their tribe in order to catch them. And the old lions are a big part of the story. So what happens is the young lions start herding gazelle in the direction of the old lions, who are lying, hiding in wait. And certainly if the young lions couldn't catch the gazelle, the old lions had no chance whatsoever. So The young lions heard them in that direction, and just at the point that the gazelle are up close on the old lions, they stand up and they roar. And the gazelle are terrified, turn around and run back right into the teeth of the young lions who kill them. Folks, for you and your career, for you and your business, you're probably going to have to go in the direction of the roar, because like the gazelle, if they had run into the direction where they were most terrified, they could have defeated those lions and gotten away and gone on to something different. But instead, their fear paralyzed them. Don't let your fear paralyze you. Start going more in that direction of the thing that you're most afraid of. Thanks.
Outstanding. Absolutely outstanding. Jeff, this is wonderful. I nearly forgot. We have a habit here of asking people, business owner like yourself, about the concept of giving. Where do you stand as a business owner? What do you think about business owner being responsible and giving back to the community?
I believe each of us makes a choice. My choice has been to contribute time and money to an organization called the Mankind Project, which is an international men's organization. It was started in the United States, but it has chapters throughout the world. So for me, this has been a wonderful venue to help men live lives of meaning and purpose, of generosity and consideration. So I've spent time and money there for more than 25 years. So for you guys out there, if you go to mkp.org, that's M like in man, K like in kind, P like in project.org, go explore the site, consider visiting a men's group or going off on one of the weekends. I think you will find it a life-changing experience.
Incredible. Outstanding. Once again, Jeff, you have done yourself. You've done really well, and we appreciate having you on the show today.
Thank you so much, folks. I look forward to hearing from some of you. Give me a ring.
Incredible. And if you were listening to this, by all means, get in touch with my friend here and also implement the strategies that you've learned today. Just one of those strategies, just changing that mindset and doing what was suggested here could actually be the thing that saves your business. Who knows? So we meant, just like we always do, we never choose our experts randomly. We choose only those people that have so much value to offer that can help you move your business to the next level. With that said, have a great day, everyone, and we wish you the best.